still has the issue with that, the hospital people right there, right at that light. Just never go away unless they,
Hi, I'm Renee.
Sean Tyler.
Leon.
Nice to meet you.
I'm a new guy to the meeting. No, listen. No, hold on. I figured that, after nearly 10 years, I have to come once in a while, right?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the February 7th, 2018 edition of the Abington Finance Committee meetings. We have a limited number of items on the agenda tonight, but very important discussions. We begin our kickoff of meeting with department heads for the FY19 budget review. Before that, we have a meeting to discuss a forklift with members of the school department and school building committee, the heads of each of those, thankfully. And you guys want to come up and start things off? We'll let you get in and get out. So we have Superintendent Peter Schaefer and School Building Committee Chairman Richard Testa with us. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So I want to thank the chair and the members of the Finance Committee. Appreciate the question that you have. I believe it's the high lift that was purchased.
Correct.
Yeah.
Maintenance in the building. And I believe that the question is how and why.
Yes.
How'd you get it and why'd you get it? And if I miss anything, obviously ask me follow-up questions, and I appreciate that the chair of our building committee, Richard Testa, is here with us. So,
just to clarify the question was how and why for a forklift?
Well, it's a,
Just so you know, that's
Right.
what the question, that's the only reason why I'm saying it, because
I'm glad you said that, because I was told it was the scissor lift that we're using in the interior of the building. For
it's,
the
Yeah.
maintenance.
yeah,
It was presented to us as a forklift.
Right.
that's on me.
That could lead
No,
to
no.
some confusion.
Yeah.
Right.
that is
Why-
probably the entire.
Why the school would need a forklift
That was what
would be a
several people
reasonable
were asking.
question.
There's a machine for clearing the sidewalks that the town can use also, whenever it needs it, because the school department's part of the town. And that was, I didn't bring the exact bids for that. I brought the bids for the scissor lift, the high lift. Then there's the high lift, that's another product. So in terms of the how and why for the Bobcat, I'll call it, rather than a forklift, because that's what it is. The personnel hours it takes to clear the number of sidewalks we have long-term costs operational dollars. So we purchased this so that we could clear sidewalks, and the town could also clear sidewalks in an efficient way, which saves operational dollars for the town down the road, so that the sidewalks can be cleared and safe. There's other uses for it in terms of landscape work or other times of the year that it will be used. And again, the highway department can take it anytime it wants. We're just having people get a license before they operate it so that people are safe. I can bring those bids or forward those bids to you if you'd like later. That's why we got it. How we got it is it was part of the building project. Just like other equipment around the building to maintain the building so that it be kept up appropriately, and again, with an eye for reducing operational dollars, because the building came with one checkbook that we don't get back. So we want to spend that very thoughtfully and very efficiently and reduce those operational dollars annually with the equipment. The high lift is really the same story. If you have questions about that, I can answer that. It's just, if there are any number of lights, sprinklers, lighting covers, speakers, sound systems, audio, recording microphones, smoke detectors, HVAC ducts. There's a number of elevated stage rigging. There's a number of elevated areas that we're concerned about. When you rent a lift like that, it costs you money. If we own it, our people use it. We have our people do it in-house, which saves money going out and contracting the services at a prevailing wage. So again, in terms of saving operational dollars, the decision was to also purchase that as part of the building project. That, it's the same philosophy. That's why we purchased it, to reduce operational dollars. And how we purchased it, it came out of that approval for the construction project, which included everything that the town purchased through that construction project, from the floor cleaners to the Bobcat, to the high lift, to any of those things that we're using to maintain and keep that building. And again, any town department, anytime the town needs the use of any of those things, they will also actualize those savings because the town can use those things.
And that was definitely one of the questions that was brought up, was were these things available to other departments in the town, or were they things that other departments in the town might already have in existence that the school might be able to use? And we didn't know the answer to those, so that was part of why. Were there other
I have all the
questions?
specific bid information on the high lift. I didn't bring the one on the Bobcat. I can bring that or forward that to you. But we.
My big questions were literally the forklift. I thought a forklift was not a great purchase, as in you could have bought a tractor, which has a front end loader that you can put forks on, and it can do 15 other things except for a forklift can basically be a forklift. I didn't know it was a scissor lift. Scissor lift makes a lot more sense.
So the scissor lift is for
Yeah,
inside the building, for
right.
all that maintenance.
Yeah.
Again, we have a master electrician on staff, so that, again, that saves us money.
Sure.
Jay goes all over the town fixing electrical things.
I actually had the opportunity to have a conversation with Jamie Howie,
Yeah.
and she said you guys are using it almost daily, between like the basketball hoop breaking,
Right.
moving security cameras, changing light bulbs. So after our conversation with her, it made a lot more sense than what we
Yeah,
had
and they
thought
were-
initially.
The process was incredibly thoughtful. I mean, it's small enough that we can actually get it onto the elevator. So if we need to take it up to the second floor, do similar, whether it's lighting changes or whatnot on the second floor as well. So, it will be used on a very regular basis and can be shared throughout town departments. I mean, it's a town asset. It's not a school asset. It was purchased obviously with town funds and is intended to be used by the town.
So the daily rate for a rental for something like this is $500. The weekly rate is between $650 and $750. So again, it was about saving operational dollars annually.
I guess, I'm the one who brought the whole question onto the table, and like I said, the question was, why did we need a forklift? Once again, a scissor lift is more what, originally when it was put on the table, like, or a pallet jack is what we were thinking. This is, with the information, this definitely makes more sense of what it's being used for and why it was needed. Whereas a forklift, we were all like, why do we need a forklift? And
How many
it was
pallets are we?
Greg said that he has a friend at Bridgewater State and they don't even have a forklift.
Yeah.
And
That's why I
we were
literally
like,
asked, so that's why I was like, that's so weird, a forklift.
Well, it would have been.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm really glad you guys asked.
So, unless anyone has any further questions, I think we can say thank you very much. Very good information. Definitely cleared things up for us, and
Great.
you guys can go about your business for the rest of your nights.
Very good.
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you very
for
much.
The next item up for bids on the Price is Right is the police department.
And then just to piggyback on the superintendent, as I prepare here, is excellent at sharing his resources. He just mentioned briefly the master electrician. I can tell you, we use Jay all the time, and he's wonderful about it. He really is. He really is a.
And the chief shares his launch cruises with the superintendent.
Just remember, that's on camera.
Oh,
So we have Police Chief Dave Majensky here, and
Lieutenant Kevin Sullivan.
Lieutenant Kevin Sullivan. Thank you for coming, both of you.
thanks for having us.
Appreciate your time.
I asked the lieutenant, he was working tonight anyways, I asked him to come along, just to kind of, I wanted him to see the process, and that way, anything that I'm missing or any, he takes care of the investigational side for the department, so he might have any kind of investigative questions. He might kind of be able to fill in the blanks. First of all, thank you. I know This is a long process. I get to be the one, is this my first one? The first of
You
all?
are the
So you guys
first.
pulled it. You guys
You are the leadoff
fired up,
hitter.
so-
You're
so
getting
it's all
us, you're
good.
getting us at our freshest.
Yes, and I appreciate the time and effort that you put in. You all volunteer, I know that, and it really is important. So it helps make the town run. And, you know, hopefully, as I go through the process, typically, unless you would like me to do something else, I go through line by line, and certainly if you have any questions on the budget, on any of my lines, you know, you can ask. I'll certainly, you know, answer any questions if that's the format, if that's all right with everyone.
Draft budget?
Sorry.
Do we have copies of the draft budget by any chance?
We have copies of the entire budget.
Or at least the police department?
Do you have it in an email?
I could not find it in an email.
What do you have, chief?
I had the cover sheet of the budget.
What do you have on you? I'll just make copies of what you have on you right now.
He has a different,
Yeah, I have.
Format than you do.
Matter.
Thing that, yeah,
I definitely didn't
let me
delete
see if I have what you gave me.
it. Matt, do you remember around
Let me see
the
what
date you
gave
sent
me.
it out? I definitely wouldn't have deleted it.
hold
Very
on,
sorry about that.
it's,
I looked back and I couldn't find the
Are we
whole
not getting a binder this year?
budget. That's one thing that I was talking to Deb about.
hold on, I might have it in here.
I have it.
You have it?
We don't have it
There it is, 1218.
Yep, I have it.
Binder, just the.
I mean, it's like real small.
yet. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how we can.
But I go
open it
through
from my
piece by
phone, though.
piece, or line by line of what,
Can you, can you
When-
re-email it? Like resend it?
I have what I, what we sent
All right, so
out.
forward it.
I will make copies.
Or like reply
I do
all, maybe?
apologize for
Okay.
this.
Right, wouldn't it come
Should
to all
have
of
had
us?
that.
Yeah,
No,
so
you
I'll
have to
send it right
forward
now. It should attach.
Renee, when was
Had
it
that on my
from?
desk, too.
When did I just pull this up? December 15th.
The preliminary one?
Yeah, you sent it out December 15th, but is that the one we're still working off of? Yeah.
Here it is.
I just emailed it to everyone. Did the attachment stay?
I'm looking now.
No.
So what page? Oh, it's just the summary, right?
It's the-
I
I think
think,
it's
we don't have
page
the
5
detail.
of 7.
is that what you guys are looking, is it the right thing?
Yeah, but we don't,
I go through the detail if that helps you. Go through line by line the detail of what last year was and what this year is for you. That is helpful.
It is, that's actually very
that's
helpful.
probably,
That would be
yeah.
yes.
I really do. I'll go through what we budgeted last year and what I'm asking for this year. I will,
Oh, yeah, it has it on
every
here.
line.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was gonna be.
I just tried to resend it.
Yep, she raised.
Oh, you got it?
Did.
All right,
You should have got it.
maybe.
You will be getting binders. Trust me. You'll be getting it this week. Apologies. Where's Deb tonight?
Deb was not able to attend tonight.
It's on page 5 if you're looking.
Yeah.
Does 5 have detail?
No, it just has like, or maybe that is.
It has-
Is that as much
Yeah,
detail
all we-
as we
all
can?
we
That's,
had
yeah, for
was-
right now, that's.
Okay,
Salary
okay.
expenses,
Total.
capital
Hopefully I can
outlay.
fill in the blanks.
Yes.
If you have questions, I should have the detail for you, but I don't have it. That
So I have with me last year's line by
Exactly the
line.
same.
but-
Oh, I wish I'd known
Okay. So the first thing I just wanted to, I dropped off a couple of simple things. The first is the annual town report for 2017. Just a couple of points on it is, you know, the men and women that work for the town of Abington. And, you know, everybody still takes up the community partners philosophy. Everybody, there really is a good buy-in that we do partner with the members of the community and try to help problem solve. That's part of what we do. It's something, there's a new academy in Randolph that's really starting to push problem solving. It's a new, brand new format, the police academy, so the guys are getting that, but we always did it here at the department anyways. Last year, we responded to only over 21,435 calls for service, did 647 arrest reports, or excuse me, investigative reports, filed 702 criminal complaints, and continue to do a lot of the different little things, the High Five Fridays, the benefits, the cruiser rides, the giving and taking tree for people, those less fortunate than ourselves, outreach programs, and our school resource officers are partnered. They're in there every day, and they are, working not only with the school district, but inviting other departments in, meaning the district attorney's office. We've partnered with them, asked them to come in and do a internet safety class for the kids. It's becoming, obviously, it's a big issue, making sure people understand texting and, the ramifications that can go with it. And certainly, one thing is we started up again with the summer DEA program, or the DEA camp. So we're doing that. This is the second year. We partnered again with the DA's office. The school resource officers are in there. As I said it in the town report, I'll talk about it a little bit later, but I'm cautiously optimistic about trying to get 2 additional police officers to work as detectives. As you know, or as some of you may know, and some of you may not, we haven't had a detective division in over a decade. That's a problem. Detectives do follow-up work, and I'll get into that a little bit later, a little bit more, work on things like robbery, fraudulent checks. A lot of the stuff, I'm having my patrol division do that, and it's difficult for a patrol officer to patrol the town in uniform and try to go back and forth, try to work on different cases, and still answer more calls for service, because it isn't, one thing that's nice about the detective unit is they can work at their pace, they can work and really prioritize. They're not receiving more, trying to respond to daily calls for service. So it's something that we really need to work on. They can work on, obviously, one of the big issues is proactively going after some of our drug issues. We work greatly in right now in partnering up with EB Hope. I have 3 officers assigned to EB Hope, and so we try to get people who might be addicted to opiates into treatment. We work in groups. We actually do home visits, non-uniform, no cruiser. They come in an unmarked car, and they work with mentors and health providers, healthcare providers, to try to get people the treatment. So we're good at that. We're good at after the fact, but I'd like to try to work a little bit stronger towards the preventive. That's something we haven't done in a little while.
May I find it,
Please.
just the police budget from the lodge back, I'm passing around, but we'll have the larger, the entire binder early next week. I apologize.
That's okay, thank you.
Thank you. Literally hot off the press.
Still warm?
Yeah.
I would also, I mentioned that we were once again, this is the third year, not the third year, but the third go at it. So for 9 years, we'll be reaccredited again. We went through the reaccreditation process, which is, I think we were the 42nd town or city in the Commonwealth out of 351. There was only 42 or 43, I forget what number we were, but one of those two. So we're a select group of cities and towns that are actually accredited by the Massachusetts Police Accreditation. So that means we're doing the most current standards, reviewing our standards, and we have outside entities come in and examine our books, examine everything that we do, and make sure that we're doing the most current professional police practices. So. And then you can see our statistics for 2017. You can see those are just kind of a snapshot of some of the things that I think people typically are interested in. Then the second page, before I start this, the second page is just, an email that I sent earlier to the town manager and the assistant town manager. I am on the Chief's Advisory Board for the Plymouth County Outreach Program, which is what I talked about, ED Hope. We have, we go out and actively try to assist people that are overdoses. Last year, I think you can read in here, we had 44 overdose events that we responded to, so 44 overdoses. We administered Narcan, and you can see the statistics. It talks about how many were men, how many were female, and also 23 times we administered Narcan in the police departments. This is just the police department. This isn't the, I'm sure the numbers are a little bit higher if you start looking at what the fire department does as well. So
Just-
20. Go ahead.
Just quickly to
Please.
interrupt, I know in past years, we've talked about the Narcan, but I know there are newer people that may not know what that is. If you could, just a quick
Narcan is
touch on that.
is a medical substance that will immediately stop the effects of opiates and reverse them. So basically it saves lives. It's something that officers, in this department, were in other departments, around the Commonwealth, were interested in. It's part of, again, our community partners. Not only, try to assist those less fortunate than yourself. I can tell you, when I talk about 22 out of the 23 times we saved a life, we brought somebody back. That's amazing in and of itself, if you think about it.
Really is.
Out of these 44 events, 23 times we brought people back from death, basically. 3 did result in an overdose death. They were dead before we got there, and or the effects were related. I can tell you I had an overdose death today. While the toxicology hasn't come back, I'm certainly pretty comfortable in saying it was an overdose of heroin. So it's out there, and we work closely with trying to do our part. But of course, that's the other part is I'm looking to bring back detectives. Again, we haven't had them in a decade. I think it's, I tell the departments that, and they just shake their heads. They're in awe that this town, especially with the activity that we're known to have, we're a pretty active community. That we don't have detectives is shocking for others. I can also tell you that I've even listened to other chiefs of similar size. I think I was at a negotiations or with somebody another chief who come in to assist, and he said, "My God, you only have X amount of police officers. How do you do that? We have close to double that, and we have the same community." So the same size community. Of course, it's a Cape Town, so it grows in the summer a little bit more than us, but certainly during the winter, they're probably less than us. So it's just it's something that again, in the staffing I'm asking for those that haven't been around, I'm asking to get back to about 12 years ago, the staffing levels we were at. So these 2 officers, these 2 detectives will put us back to the number we had back 12 years ago.
Can you share what those numbers are, Chief?
Sure. We have 29 police officers, including all myself, the lieutenant, the deputy chief, so.
And you're looking to get back to what number?
31 would be what we were back some 12 years ago.
Thank you.
So, no, you're welcome. It's all good. And please, interrupt me, or if you have any questions, please, it's good.
And the 31 was the, what, 2 detectives, or was it
We had,
patrolmen, or?
yeah, we had 2 detectives back then.
And we
and
eliminated those
we
positions?
eliminated those positions, yeah.
I wasn't there 10 years ago.
Yeah,
so-
exactly.
Yeah.
What happened was we had a difficult budgetary across the state.
Sure.
And, everybody, we all, all the time, every town, every community, suffered. So it isn't just unique to Abington, but certainly a lot of communities have built back, some have not. Some are still in this boat. And I understand the fiscal constraints, I get it. My job is to tell you what I need, and be as open and honest as I can. And ultimately, I understand there's other constraints, I get it. But I'll just give you, you pay me to give you what I think is important, and that's what I'll do.
What's the
Please.
approximate cost of the 2 detectives?
I think we put in, I know what we put in. We put in $100,000, $50,000 each. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, about, how those detectives and how extra personnel drive down overtime costs.
Right.
And it has done. I've said we were going to do it, and it's occurring.
Sure, so Chief, through the chair, just trying to,
Yeah,
a little decorum, if you will. Just perspective. I think you shared some great perspective. I know that when Chief Franey was in the position before he came onto our group, I think you were very gentle when you talked about the fiscal constraints. It was an albatross for the entire town, every department.
Absolutely.
And without any digging into your budget, I don't see it as a restorative budget. I see it over the years that you've been chief, working through your department it's been a steady incline of service as it relates, so service goes like this, cost goes like this. We've had our discussions as it relates to preferences, how the town wants to put capital versus in the budget, out of the budget and whatnot, and I think we've come a long way, but I think that it's fair to say that every department was decimated.
Absolutely.
And having a hand in those budgets, I know it was a very, very difficult time. And I respect, as you say, everybody has a constraint, and you're the first one to kind of go around, but I think that you were very gentle to say everyone was decimated. My humble opinion is that you're not necessarily asking for much.
I will also point out that in the last, the police department has been a priority. We've added 4 positions in the last 3 years, Chief.
Correct.
So the march continues, so we're on FY19. There's nobody more cognizant of this than Dave, obviously. There's an opportunity to walk through 1 or 2 or FY20 becomes the year, then obviously that's convenient. It still is to the extent that they're called school, non-school priorities, that remains the non-school priority for the Board of Selectmen, and certainly my office.
And I absolutely understand that. I really do. I understand that everyone's getting pulled in, you're getting pulled in a lot of different directions. And like I said, my job as chief is just to tell you what I think. And I'll go from there.
I said, my quick question was, I know your hope is for 2.
Yeah.
Does 1 make any kind of a difference? Does 1
Yes.
bring us a detective, or is...
1 will bring us a detective, 2 will bring us 2 detectives. At this point, whatever we bring forward is going to be put into the detective division as a full-time detective. So yes, 1 would be great.
One of the questions that we had raised when we were discussing last week, or 2 weeks ago, was your current positions, are they all filled, and is anyone still in the academy?
Yes, we have 3 in the academy currently. I have some officers that are out. I'm not quite sure what direction we're headed there. So yes, and I'm still trying to put, I think I have 2 slotted coming up for the academy. And that's another whole story for another day, or is just how difficult it is to get civil service to assist us. We're covered by civil service, that's, and it's difficult at times. I can tell you this, I can tell you civil service, we wondered why nobody signed our list. It was yesterday that we got notice. 12 days, nobody came in to sign the list. We wondered why. We called up civil service. They said, oh, sorry, we forgot to send it out. That's what you're dealing with.
Can you explain civil service a little bit and how that works for you in the hiring process? Because we do have a lot of new people that might not know the,
Civil service is something that was established years ago to basically to stop nepotism. That's really what it was for. It was really about allowing different people to get into that was the original intent of it. And it made sense back then. It was funny, I was talking with the East Bridgewater chief about this at a chief's meeting today, and they're trying to opt out of it right now, civil service. They're not the only ones, but so if I get an open position, what happens is I call for a list. If I have 1 position, they give me 3 names. I have to choose from one of those 3 names, or if if, first of all, the people have to sign. If nobody signs, then I have to ask for more names. And that's not unusual. And I have to choose from one of the three, or if it's two positions, one of the five, or I have to give a reason for bypass. And there's a lot of issues with it. One is it's cumbersome. It takes a lot of time. You would think that, you know, it would be an easy process for me to pick up the phone, call civil service, get some names, and get it going. I can tell you it probably takes me 3 months to begin the process, and then to do a background, and then to try to find an academy. And then what I get sometimes, go ahead.
Can I interrupt, Dave?
Please.
One of the things with civil service doesn't pre-screen these people
No.
either. There's certain statutory requirements to be a police officer. Some of the names that come on the list, people aren't even legally eligible to be a police officer. So of those 3 names, there may only be, in theory, if you're a I-1 officer, in theory, none of them may be legally eligible, or only one of them, or 2 of them. So you might not have, you know, quality candidates. You legitimately, you may not have quality candidates for the chief to have to choose from. So, yeah, I'm sorry, Chief.
No, and that is absolutely true, in that many times we have to continually ask for lists and more names because because we're disqualifying them for a multitude of reasons. Most of the time it's a background investigation we do, which is rather cumbersome. We find out that they might not be the best candidate. But
So they don't do that before they get to you? Is that, I'm a little green,
Yeah,
but
no,
is that,
Standard.
so there's nothing anybody can do about that?
No, all you need is a high school, 21 years old, a high school diploma, and whatever it is they charge, $125.
And pass the test, right?
Yes.
Pass the test.
So, yeah.
Are there standards given to these people? Like, so when they go to take that test, does it say, in order to become a police officer, if you have these 10 things, you will not, I mean, do you think maybe, not that you could do it, but maybe if that was brought up somewhere, it might be helpful, might help your sort of applicants?
I think humbly, Greg, my thought on that is to, I don't think I'm alone. I think a lot of communities in the Commonwealth think it, is that there needs to be a process to get people out. So we have our own test in the town, and then we take our candidates. We start them off as auxiliary police officers. We let them know, hey, do you want to do the job? Is this job for you? Because a lot of times I've had people, after they graduate the academy and we've spent a lot of money, tell me this job ain't for me, sorry, chief. And I respect that, I do. I've also had people come out of the academy and I have to, get rid of them. It's not completely uncommon. They don't make it through. So we've spent 5 months' pay as a police officer, all this time and effort, for them to sometimes discover that they don't want to be here, and sometimes for me to discover I don't want them here. So I think the best process and the fairest process would be to have an exam, allow people to take the exam from town, give them preference from town. I think that's important.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can I just ask a
Go ahead.
question about the list? When you receive the list, are they signing up for Abington specifically, or they're just signing up for a list to get on a police department?
What happens is Abington, well, first of all, disabled veterans are on the top of the list, followed by veterans, followed by Abington residents, followed by out-term residents. And so an Abington resident who gets a 70 would be above a Brockton resident that gets a 99.
As an example.
As an example. As an example. And that's any community, which is different.
It's because they live here?
Because they live there. Yeah. So.
There
You
needs
know,
to, yeah,
it's-
sorry.
It's interesting, if you think about it, it's like, and I don't know that that's, I don't know that we're getting the, I don't know that that's getting the best candidate.
Well, it was well
Sure.
intended at a point in
Yeah.
time, decades ago, it was a
Yeah.
well intended, well-meaning process. It had value at the point in time.
Because we rubbed this genie lamp, what is the process to get out of civil service? And is that what the town is recommending
Well, that's another debate for another day. I
That's
don't know
perfectly
that
fine.
we should open that can of worms, because I'm sure that there'll be a lot of feedback just on this discussion alone. This will,
Yes, I will.
people will be very upset about it. Some people that we've actually had this discussion, it's open and frank discussion.
No worries,
Just so you know, it is in our charter, that the town is a civil service town. within
So,
the town.
So it's a
so we
charter
would
change.
need to have
We need
a motion
charter change.
to change the charter.
So I unring that bell. Next question really comes down to, is in their probationary period, if somebody goes through the police academy, that's at the burden and cost of the community. If they leave, do we affix the cost to that person who didn't successfully?
If I terminate them?
If all cause within the first year, isn't there a certain provision you're allowed to
Yeah.
charge them back?
Yes, so when they go to the academy, once they graduate, I charge them $100 a week until we get the $3,000 back. So we do get our money back. If I terminate them, we get whatever they paid in to the point of termination.
I see, so they're not required. We don't chase them. Not saying that
No,
we
there's
should,
no-
but we
There's
don't.
nothing that would require them to, unless they're working for us.
I see.
And that has happened. Don't think too much.
But I wouldn't want people to think, though, that because it's a difficult system, that's one of the reasons why positions do go unfilled for a while, because the chief isn't settling for people who shouldn't be police officers in Abington.
Right.
People who are
Correct.
serving the town belong.
Vetted, absolutely.
Yes. So don't,
Yes,
you know,
that's a great point, thank you.
Please don't believe or think that people are out there don't belong out
Yeah.
there. That's why it's hard to fill and it takes time to fill.
And that is exactly my point, is that it takes time to vet the right people. So I might get a list, I might send it back, they'll ask for more names. A couple of weeks later, they'll give me another list. I'll vet them out, and I'll take, who I think's the qualified candidate. If it's not, it has not been unheard of for us to ask 4 times for a list of candidates.
Because you're not just picking anyone to put in the
Exactly.
position.
Yeah,
You're-
we like to
it's-
think we're picking the best. And then, other communities, I'm sure, are doing the same, and other communities are, sometimes still on us.
If you get the detective positions, will that come from already Abington police officers, or would you go out for them? Because wouldn't you want
Go ahead.
experienced police officers to do that?
Yeah, in a perfect world, we would ask for a lateral transfer, and I don't think that's gonna happen. If I hire a police officer, I'll ask for the list, we'll get them, we'll send them to the academy, they'll come out, they won't be a detective, they'll be a patrolman, one of my seasoned people who have done the job and who I think are capable of it, will do the job as detective. So, it's a process. It's basically, honestly, it's the person that goes out there and works hard day in and day out. And those are the people that get rewarded with the jobs of detective. There's nothing earth-shattering about that. Guys that are out there, or the men or the women that are out there doing the job, are the ones that will be considered, and ultimately the ones that will receive it. That position. So I had asked for, in this budget cycle, there's $100,000 additional you'll see in that, above and beyond any contractual agreements in my personnel, salaries and wages. You'll see what I asked for. There's $100,000 additional in that for the 2 detective positions.
Keep
So-
in mind, though, Chief,
Go ahead.
just so you know, the town manager's recommended budget does include the absorption of those funds for the grant-funded positions.
Yes.
Yes, but at this time, not the detective position.
Yep.
You're aware of that? I know you're aware of that.
Yes, I was going to just talk about my requested, and
Okay,
then
just-
what you recommend is,
Understood.
might be contrary.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, and my requested amount to the town manager was, was $100,000, and that includes the 2 positions for detectives to get us back to staffing levels. When we talk a little bit about detectives, it's funny, but I wrote a note for myself that, in the last month, I can tell you that we've had 3 sexual assaults that were the lieutenant, and people are working on. Very serious cases, and these are the kind of things that, along with, other issues that certainly we should be having detectives work on. Right now, we use patrol force, or the lieutenant tries to fill in as much as he can and assist. So we have patrol officers doing, rape investigations and sexual assault investigations. So my next line item that I have is overtime. And I just, some of the lines of overtime in the FY 17, we expended about $184,000 in overtime. As of today, we've spent about $114,000 in overtime. A lot of what this overtime represents is unfilled shifts. So if I don't have the staffing levels, I have open slots that I have to fill in order to keep, I try to keep a sergeant and a couple patrol on the road to cover 10 square miles. Or I give you an example, this weekend, we have 3 out of our 4 8-to-4 officers over this weekend are all on the military, and they're all in military training. So 3 out of my 4 officers, Saturday and Sunday, are going to be gone doing their military commitment. I have to fill that. And then my 4 to 12 shift, there is another military officer, and he's doing training the same day. So as we have more veterans, and they train and they continue on, they continue to receive training, and we're obligated to allow them to go to the training, which only makes sense. But that fills slots. And if I had the ability, if I had detectives, they have more of an ability to fill in some of these slots. That just comes down to staffing. So, go ahead, please.
To the overtime costs, looking back at my numbers from last year's budget, it looks like the actual number for FY 16 was over 200,000, was about 211,000. I don't know if you have that, but it looks like that was down. Would that be the increased staffing that we've seen making up for that difference?
As we fill in staff, as we have the ability, and I actually have staffing in, it's going to drive down overtime costs. Because what costs the overtime right now, it's minimal, and there might be an accident at the end of a shift, and if somebody puts a couple hours in here, or there might be, an investigation that somebody's following up on, that they're putting a couple extra hours in here, but the majority of it is, open shifts that we need to fill, or absences that we absolutely need to fill. That's where the majority of overtime comes from, which is just nothing more than staffing. If you get the staffing, it drives the cost down. There'll always be overtime, and it's just part of the process, but it shouldn't be to this extent. It really shouldn't. And that's just a result of a lot of work. And one of the things that you'll see when we talk about overtime is fatigue. I think officers came up here, I think the union president and officers came up here and at one point and talked to the Board of Selectmen about how much they're working and how many hours they were working and how they felt it was unsafe. And and I heard I heard it and I still hear their complaint and their concern, I should say. Complaint's kind of a tough word. But their concern, and I understand it, and that's trying to work towards hiring as quick as we can and getting more staff to alleviate some of that pressure.
Having money in your budget to hire people is only as good as the ability to find qualified people
Correct.
to fill shifts with. That's been a challenge the last couple of years. So having the funds available is only half the battle.
Yep.
Quick question too,
Please.
because I know it had come up. How often is the academy, and how many are there? And do you choose the academy?
I really don't choose, I do, but I don't. There are some academies I like and some academies I don't like. They're not all standard. If anybody tells you they're standard, they're not. Having worked at every one of the academies, or been to every one of the academies, all the way from Western Mass and Springfield to down in Plymouth, and all in between, there are different levels of professionalism. So I try to handpick my academy as much as it's humanly possible, but it also goes on when academies become available. Right now, we have a state police academy, which I think is wonderful, in New Braintree at the state police facility. That's a live-in academy. I have one officer signed up to go to that. I have 2 more I'm trying to hire, but I won't make that deadline. So I'll end up sending them the next available academy, I think it's in June, in Boylston. Do I think Boylston is as good as the state police? No, I don't. But, I have to live with whatever, timing and everything else. I can't wait for the next state police academy to come around. It might not come around for another year. So I'm sort of
The academy's 6 months.
Yes, although they do have an academy in Randolph right now it is a pilot program that they cut it down to 17 weeks, I believe. So I have an officer in that, and they do more hands-on, so I'm looking forward to what the result of that is.
Is that a live-in also?
No.
No.
The only live-in
It's a
academy is the State Police Academy in New Braintree. And it's not that the state police is any better at training. I think the facility is better, and I also think that they have them 24 hours. I think that makes a big difference. It makes a difference on, on the environment. When you go to the academy, you got to go home. You take your car, you go home, and you deal with life's issues, And to some extent, I guess that's good too. You can make the argument that that's a good thing. But when you're in a live-in academy, they're watching what you eat. You can't go home and snack, right? They're watching what you do, and they're in at nighttime, so you'll be during the day, you'll go to the class. At night, you'll actually do practicals. So you're hands-on, you're learning, which I think is the most important part of it. It's great to sit in front of a book and learn about constitutional law or learn about motor vehicle law, but then to actually do it, then it sinks in. I'm a person who I learn by doing. You can tell me, I can read it 100 times in a book. Once I do it, I'll understand it. And that's how I retain it. I don't think I'm alone in my thinking or in my ability to do it. And I think they combine those two things, which I think is huge. The other academies just don't have the time. They have them Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, and they're done. And it's hard to get all that stuff in. So, and to answer your question, there's 7 academies throughout the state. So, various locations: Boston, MBTA, Plymouth, Springfield, Boylston.
I think at one time you had an officer they had to drive quite a commute, if I remember, to one of the academies, back and forth.
We had an officer that ended up not having to go, but he was going to take the commute to West Springfield. He was going to do it. He was that, and you know what, that spoke volumes to me. That told me I had the right hire for a kid that really wanted to do the job. And as lucky would happen, somebody bowed out, and he's now at Plymouth, right now. So to me, that's a good hire. That's a kid that really wants to do the job, I think, for the right reasons. So, good to hear. So my next line item would be educational incentive. It's a contractual item. There is a modest increase in that of $2,700. That's an educational incentive, or otherwise known as a twin bill, which is it's officers who, right now we don't, new hired officers do not receive the twin bill. So you can have a master's degree in criminal justice, or a doctorate degree in criminal justice, and you get no more money than somebody who has a high school diploma. That's a problem. It's something that we're very well aware of. I think it's something I spoke about 8 years ago about at town meeting, and said this is a really bad idea, not to continue this. I think what's happening is, now if you think about it, you're an officer who just got hired. You went to school, you got your master's degree, you got your doctorate degree. You get your associate's degree, whatever it is. and you can make 10, 20, or 25% more in another community, in the next community over, because we don't give you money for that degree, but they do. What do you think you're gonna do when that year's time is up? You gotta go. So that's what, and that's not unheard of. You know, it's financial. So that's something that, you know, again, it's a bargaining issue that we'll talk about, and we'll certainly try to rectify it as much as we humanly can.
Little background for, we unfunded the Quinn bill back during the
budget crisis.
Budget crisis.
2008-ish.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, the state
Well, the
stopped,
state-
we stopped matching it.
Right.
Right.
So
and
it
we
wasn't that the
didn't-
town
didn't
We didn't
uniform
unfund it,
it.
the state unfunded it,
Right.
and we didn't pick up the town wasn't in a position at the time to pick up
What the state was
full-
going to
what the state
provide.
had been
So at
paying.
the time, you are correct, the state would fund 50% of it, we would fund 50% of it. The state stopped funding, but so didn't we. We didn't continue on. I think, in retrospect, of the argument or the position I was trying to make is let's continue on with the 50%, even though the state didn't do their part of it, let's continue on, because I was afraid we were gonna lose offices. And get offices, you know, part of the incentive is to stay here is, you know, if you have a high school diploma and you get here, and you know you can make 10% more if you take classes at Massasoit in a year or 2 years, you get your associate's degree, well, that's a big jump. So that's your incentive, and we're getting a more educated officer, a more well-rounded officer. And then if you take it a little further, you get 20%. And if you get your master's degree, you can get 25%. And your doctorate, you can get 30%. So there was an incentive system built in there to, and they would have to pay for their own education. I mean, it isn't the town's paying for the college education, they're paying for it. And eventually, they're receiving a benefit for it, and the town's receiving a benefit for it. So, again, that's something that, you know, obviously I'm a big proponent of education, for the sheer fact of, if you think about it, you really think about it, you got an officer with a sidearm who's got a high school diploma. That's all he needs, he or she. They go to the academy for 5 months. They may need to make a decision, they can take somebody's life. That's, you know, not, you know, it's pretty dramatic, if you think about it. Or they have to make a decision as to, you know, a death for an overdose today. Was it an overdose, or was it something else? Was it something more nefarious? They have to, you know what I mean? They need to have that training, that ability to really decipher through stuff. And I also think it, you know, part of education, a big part to me, is diversity. It's the ability to listen to other people, other viewpoints, other, you know, when you go to a philosophy class and you listen to people that have a completely different, you know, if you're a conservative person, you listen to somebody who's liberal, and you understand it, and you pick something up from it. And I think that's to me, that's the value of education. It really is. It's more than just, it's that whole, I mean, that's what I got out of college, was the different viewpoints and the appreciation for the different viewpoints of people that might have different idea of what you do. I still think they're wrong, but. Just kidding. So that's Quinville. Shift differential, I did not change shift differential. We asked for 50,540, and I think that's an ample amount. We did not expend that amount last year. I think last year we expended 38,000, and I anticipate that if we get the officers that through the academy, night shift differential, and I'll explain what that is, because maybe some people don't know that. I anticipate they'll be on nights, and the town eventually will, once we get them trained and on the road, will be obligated to pay this. So if you work nights, if you work 4 to 12 or midnight to 8, if you work 4 to 12, I think it's $52 you get extra a week for working 4 to midnight, or in the afternoon to midnight. If you work midnight to 8, I think it's $55 a week you get for working that shift. So that's night shift differential, so that everybody understands what it is. If you work 8 to 4 shift, you get nothing, because you work 8 to 4 shift.
These are things above salary.
Yes.
Right, like bonuses, perks, whatever. for taking on whatever it is.
Yeah, I
Just an additional payment for working a different shift.
Understand,
Yeah,
Working the overnight, you get paid more than
correct,
paid an additional amount
yes.
on top of your salary.
A holiday pay, so, holiday pay, I increased this line item by just shy of $11,000 to a more realistic number. Consistently, we spend about $90,000 on this line item. And, in FY '18, we budgeted $74,000, yet in FY '17, we spent $92,000. In FY '16, we probably spent the same amount. Holiday pay, and there's a reason for that. Holiday pay is if these officers work a holiday, one of the 11 holidays, they get the option to take the time off or take an extra day's pay. So if you work Christmas, you can later take a day off of your choosing, or you can get an extra day's pay. Not time and a half, just straight pay. In the past, it was always officers took the day's pay. It was simple. And that's how it was always calculated. Because I took the 11 holidays, took the day's pay, and most people, 95% of them take the day's pay. 95% of them do not take the day's pay anymore. It's a different generation, it's a different time. They take the time off, which necessitates overtime. You know what I mean? They'll take the shift off. And a lot of them do it and that's contractually, I can't stop it. So where I can, when I'm supposed to say stop it, is I can't manage it. So if there is Super Bowl Sunday coming up, and the whole 4 to 12 shift wants to take the day off, and they have holiday time, they all put it in, I have to post it. I can't stop it. So I can't, and stop it's a tough word, I don't mean to be
Why
saying that.
not pay overtime for working the holidays?
You just make someone else overtime.
Right.
Yes, yes, so maybe I'm not explaining that correctly, so.
No, I understand, because it's the same way that,
Okay, so if I work Christmas, right?
No,
I get the day's pay
I've-
and I get another day's pay. Does that make sense?
but you're saying it's all at straight time.
No.
So
What
you're
I'm s-
paying the holiday at overtime.
Yes, so I work Christmas, I get my day's pay and I get an extra day's pay.
Right, so they're getting paid 48 hours for the week instead of 40 hours.
Correct,
So-
but they don't take that. They get the straight
Right,
time.
I understand that.
Okay,
Why not pay overtime on the holiday?
because they're still gonna take.
They still want the day off.
They want the day off.
Because they won't even,
It isn't
I
the money.
understand,
They
I
don't want the
understand.
money. It isn't about the money, it's about the time off.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That lies the rub, that lies the change. It was always, for me, when I worked, it was about the money. It was about, listen, I wanted, if I worked a holiday, I love the fact that they paid me an extra day's pay. Today, it's not so much so. Today, they'd rather have the time off. They'd rather say, listen, I'll work the holiday, but I want to take another day off, which necessitates overtime, as opposed to just that straight time. Instead of just paying extra straight time, now I'm paying time and a half. I don't know if I'm explaining that right.
Somebody else.
I have a clear understanding of what you're
Okay.
saying. I'm just asking a different question, probably
Okay, gotcha.
not asking it well, so we can move on. So, no,
Gotcha,
no,
thanks. I think you're
No.
asking it well, I don't think I'm explaining it
no,
well. So that's why, realistically, I tried to put the requested amount was $85,000. You'll see, that's an increase, like I said, of just shy of $11,000, because it's a realistic number. It's not, it's like, we know we're gonna spend this money, let's make the numbers right.
From 11 to 90-something, right?
No,
No, it went
he
up by
increased from 74 to
74 to
85.
85.
74 to 85.
Yeah,
I thought you were saying
74 to
we
The-
budget 11 and you spend 85.
No.
I was like, that sounds like,
No, that's the snow budget.
I got you. I was missing it for, no.
So,
I think, Greg, we threw you off with the snow budget discussion.
That's probably what it is.
so that's,
Yeah, it's not snow.
as of today, we expended 41,000. I looked at it today, so in that line item. So it's on target with what I'm talking about. And the offices can also hold these holidays, and what happens at the end of the year, they some of them take the time off, and others just say, you know, I didn't want the time off, maybe.
This might be a terrible question, but
Go ahead.
if everybody says they don't want to work in a day, like, what do you do?
Oh, God, we force people.
All right, so you can do it, it's just tough, difficult, meaning like, nobody really wants to do it.
Yeah, force it.
Yeah,
That's part of their.
that's what I
Is there a
mean.
union, correct?
Yeah, what
Yeah.
happens is, okay, so you call in, you want the day off. You
Yep.
say, I want the day off. So the first thing we do is we call out a phone. We make a phone call, everybody, nobody answers the phone. So the next thing we do is we take whoever's on the shift before and say, yeah, have you worked a double? No. You're now working a double, because they can't work more than
2 shifts.
more than 2 shifts.
Yep.
We try not to, but we have made them work 3 shifts.
Yeah, people need to sleep.
Which is why they don't answer the phone when you
Yeah.
call, because we're
Yeah.
understaffed, so they're
Yeah,
working
they
these
value
extra
time
hours
off.
a lot
Yes.
And that's where a
anyways.
lot of stress comes from, is time off. The officers value time off, and they want to work, honestly, they want to work when they want to work. They want to work road jobs or other things when they want to work. But it's convenient to them, and that's human nature. I get that. But sometimes it's, hey, it's the job, and it's, you know, but other times, if we can stop that, it's a good thing. It's healthy, it makes for a healthier work environment. So the next line item is specialist stipends. And again, you're gonna see that this is a big increase, and it's probably worth vetting out a little bit. Is that I'm increasing this stipend by $30,000. And again, you're gonna see that last year we spent $52,000, I think, we spent $52,403 on this line item. And we appropriated $28,000. It doesn't make sense. We know contractually we're obligated to pay these line items. It's just a line item that just hasn't been funded. It's a contractual item for like fitness stipends, training stipends, specialist stipends. The officers, receive these amounts.
Specialists, can you?
Specialist pay.
Like.
So again, it's above and beyond, and so your question is anticipate it's above and beyond.
And
But
what
it's-
is a specialist?
Specialists can be, it's contractually driven, and it's outlined in the contract. I don't have it in front of me.
But don't they go to receive, like, they have a certain
It might be a detective.
extra training?
Right,
or,
yes.
In a certain area, whether it's
Right.
like underwater something, or they're,
It would be like a detective, a school resource officer off the top of my head, a court prosecutor, those kind of line items. And there's also a fitness stipend in there that if officers successfully pass a fitness exam, we take them out on the track, push-ups, sit-ups, all that. They get a stipend for it, which is great. It's good help. It's a good, it's a good way to keep people healthy, and ultimately, if they successfully pass it, it maybe helps pay for their gym membership for the year. It's contractually driven.
The 52,000 in FY17 looks like a pretty hefty jump over the actuals from the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
Do we know what the,
Yeah, a lot of
The
it is
cause
just-
for the
is
jump
just
was?
younger officers who are out there, taking advantage of the stipends, the fitness stipends, taking advantage of the opportunity they get contractually, so.
and some of the stuff too, I think it was broken up differently in different line items.
in previous years?
In previous years.
Okay.
It was,
Bounced around.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it might have been in a different area of the
Yes.
budget, and then when we went through that,
Only goes to 2 line items, right,
Right.
salaries and
right.
And
expenses in the end, yeah.
what I try to do every year is to hone the budget down to make it more realistic to what we spend, to how we spend it and what we spend it for. Vacation would be my next line item, and that I reduced by $10,000. I think the town manager is also in working with him and in trying to, so it went from $100,000, 110 to 100. And if my memory serves me right, the town manager was going to, and we were going to work together to even, look at the possibility of
Yeah,
reducing
90.
that further. I don't know what his final number was, but that was certainly an area that I thought, when I sat in front of you last year and said, you know what, you hire more people, it's gonna drive down some costs, and we're gonna be, there's an area that it is. There's an area I can manage. There's an area that the union has worked with me, as well as, the ability to hire more people that I can control vacation. I can control, one person takes a vacation day, the next person is not allowed. But the flip side to that is that they just take a holiday that I can't control, so that, But, so anyways, I'm reducing that by, at a minimum, $10,000, possibly working with the town manager, might be a little bit more.
Do you happen to have what the FY17 number was for that?
Right, yeah.
I-
Oh, no, we don't
Yeah,
have
no,
details.
We don't have the line by
Detail.
line.
What are you looking for, expenditure?
The vacation budget appropriation, the actual.
I do not, I have the FY18, but not,
Yeah, what is it so far this year?
oh, I'm sorry, well, I have the FY17 final expenditure. Sorry.
Yes.
So
Yep,
that
that
is
was-
$85,758. That's what we expended in vacation in FY17. So if you're looking at, what I'm trying to do is,
Yeah,
and we
'cause-
had asked for 110, and we're driving it down to 100, maybe even
Yeah,
less.
so the trend does seem to be going down. That's
Yes.
down a little from 16, which was down a little from 15. So,
Yes, and hopefully, as we hire people, and as we have additional resources, those numbers will drive down. That was the promise, and that's what hopefully and too much, not only it doesn't save money, but I think the men and women that work are happier that there's less stress. So it generally translates into making money, but it also translates, saving money, I should say, but also translates into less work, less stress, less force.
Better morale.
Yeah, better morale. Sick request, same idea. This one I reduced by $30,000. And again, I'm gonna work with the town manager, we're working together here's an area as we explored the budget together and he reviewed my budget proposals, here's an area that I thought that, we could trim even more. So I had appropriated $115,000 in FY18. I'm asking for, my requested was $85,000, so $30,000 less. And again, we're working with the town manager to even try to bring that number down even a little bit more. Again, that's the same idea as the vacation, that, as we get people, as we discover, as we hire and increase our staffing, it allows us not to have to fill and creates, less overtime. Because those are overtime numbers, even though and that's, just so you know, that's overtime pay. So if you were to look at that as general overtime, and then there's other areas of overtime, if that makes sense. I'm explaining it.
yep.
What time, I requested an increase of $8,000 in overtime for a total of 58, so $50,000 the previous year, 58. We expended $57,000 the year before in FY17. This is a more realistic number. And here's and it's not negative to me, here's the interesting part about more officers. They're doing more activity. They're solving more crime. They're making more arrests. They're doing more criminal investigation, which results in more court time. When they go over to court, obviously they get paid overtime for that. There's a 4-hour minimum, so when they go over to court, they get paid at least 4 hours for their time to go over there. Anything over that, of course, they get paid more, but it's a minimum of about 4 hours.
Again, this is gonna sound like a really dumb question. Why the 4 hours? Is the 4 hours over and above what they get paid? Or is it just, you're working today for 8 hours, but you're at least gonna get 4, or you're working for 4?
No, they go to court for an hour, they
Yeah,
get
you
paid
get
for 4
paid for
hours.
4 hours.
And that's just like
It's
a union
contract.
thing?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a contractual item.
Yep.
And,
Because the court date is scheduled for it is, and it's likely that working a night shift, they might be on a night shift, and they've got to go to court as a witness or whatever. They're not scheduled to work when a case comes up in court. So they have to be going at a time when they're not otherwise working. Almost, it's rare when they would happen to be scheduled to work when a court date happens to come up, more or less. That's generally how it works, so.
Correct.
So it would be, it just doesn't, it would be a coincidence that a court date comes up when they would happen to be on duty time.
And if they did, they'd go over to court, and then I'd have to fill their absence.
Right.
Sure.
So either way, I'm paying.
Yeah.
Now, the thought pattern, and I can, so with that thought, the 4-hour minimum, my thought was always, well, the town's paying them for 4 hours, so if they only stay there an hour,
Yeah.
I still pay them 4 hours. So I forced that issue.
Yeah.
Went to arbitration and lost. The court said, the arbitrator said, no, you cannot bring him back to the station. If you do bring him back to the station, you've got to pay another minimum. So if I bring him back to the station and say, Officer Jones, you went over to court, it only took 15 minutes, the judge dismissed it, you still owe me 3.5 hours, or 3 hours, and, you know, can you catch up on your reports? Officer Jones, if I say that, Officer Jones, I have to pay him that 5 hours. So, that's, I pushed that issue in an effect of trying to be as most efficient. I thought it fair. The arbitrator ruled against me and said, no, Chief, you're wrong. If you require them to do anything other than court, you need to pay them another minimum. So I don't do that anymore.
And would the detective stuff help with that, or this has no impact at all on that?
Yes,
The
it's no.
detective would help in the sense that if he or she was working, if somebody had to go work a day shift, I had a detective on day shift, and somebody from the day shift had to go to court, I wouldn't have to fill it.
I got you.
That would be.
I
that's what
didn't know
staffing helps.
because detective could take the place of something else, that it could sort of be like a placeholder a lot of times. It's literally a thought.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if that's the way everybody does it, or nobody's ever heard of that before, so
Right.
that's why I said.
Sometimes you need that specific officer, to
Yeah,
that, to that
What I'm saying might not even make
case,
any
or,
sense.
it's how often are you sending officers over to the courts?
Well, more frequently than not, as of late, because we're pretty active. So there's a lot of cases. We're going over to Superior Court quite a bit because of the complexity and of the cases that we're dealing with. So it's hard to, I can't.
Different every week.
Yeah, it really is. Some weeks it's not as much as other weeks. So. But I know that we expended $57,000 last year, and I realistically know we're going to spend that yet. So hence the reason for the increase. It's just it's not really an increase, it's just an actual number, what we're really spending.
More accurate
More
line,
accurate, yeah.
line item. It does look like it was 56,000 the year before that as well,
Yeah,
for
50
actual, so.
yes. It's 56,694.
Is that an item that could,
The
is
year before was 56,085, so.
that an item that could be like
Seems pretty
120,000 just because it is what it is, or is it pretty much, yeah, so it could be whatever it really ends up being?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a-
but history tells us
Right,
it's
I
going to
get
be,
Yep, roughly.
yeah, roughly,
Yep.
you know? But you're right. We could have a major case where officers, it could be some major
Yep.
case that we have officers every day, we go on for months and months and months. No. Sick leave incentive, I didn't change it, it remains at, level funded at 3,000. Sick leave incentive is if they don't, and this is a line item I'd love to tell you, we have to bounce it up. I need $10,000 in this line item, but we don't, because this is, if they don't use sick time, there's an incentive built in not to use sick time. Typically, officers use sick time, so I mean, this is a number, I'd love to tell you that I need to increase, but it would mean we're using less sick time. And, there's a lot of reasons for sick time. It's not a knock on anything. It's just, stress, a lot of Family Medical Leave Act, it's a big issue.
Yep.
And it does affect us. Military leave affects us. These things they're not without costs, I guess, I mean, they're great benefits, but nothing's free. And when you have Family Medical Leave Act and you're entitled to it, then you pay it. but it isn't without cost. Other personal services, that's another item that remains unchanged. I kept it exactly where it was. It covers items such as vehicle maintenance call-out, DPW call-outs, our matron services, so when we arrest a female, we send them over to Plymouth or to Marshfield, and they bill us for that. Plymouth County Sheriff's Department bills us for that. So that's the line item that we that's where that goes, for personal services. Clothing allowance is contractual. That's pretty straightforward on what officers get for uniform allowance and what if officers get if things get replaced or ruined or whatnot. In-service training. This also, we expended $109,000 last year in training. I'm keeping it at $100,000. To date, we've expended $50,000. So I don't want to increase this or decrease it. It's an item that training is worth its weight in gold. One of the nice things that we're doing is when I speak about training is, and some of the things that we kind of do that is probably out of the norm, is that the International Association of Chiefs of Police has a program for One Mind, it's called. And it's a program to train officers in how to deal with people with mental illness. It's a recommendation that they made, I think the President's Commission made it, International Association of Chiefs of Police. We saw that. There's a commitment to it, there's a training commitment to it. It's how to deal with people that might have, might be autistic, people that might have mental health issues, and how, for us to understand what the best approach is and how to effectively communicate with people. I think that's out of the norm. That's part of our community partnership. I'm a huge believer in stuff like that. And, to help those less fortunate than ourselves. And to do it correctly. Because that's, you go into a call and you don't understand, a kid that might have, mental health or autism or bipolar or whatever you might be dealing with, a different multitude of things that are across the community and across the Commonwealth. The impact you can have, positive or negative, is just tremendous. So we try to be very, very cognizant of that. Go ahead, please.
Just a quick question. Is that the kind of item where if the year's going on and you're getting closer to the budgeted amount or closer to your overall budget, you can scale back on what you're sending people to account for that?
Yes, I can. I try not to scale back. I look at the areas of high liability. Handcuffing, I look at training. High liability. Use of force. Firearms. Taser recert. Any area that I think is of high liability to the town, that if we make a mistake, that it would really cost, those are the areas that I hone in on training. CPR, first aid. Some of them are obligated that you have to by law, but some of them are just areas that you really need to be, really know what you're doing, because you can really, do damage and, create a problem for the town. So we're very much in tune with that. And that's part of the accreditation process, that's why a lot of people maybe don't do accreditation, because it's just cumbersome. You really need to train in and specific about how you train and make sure that you do it, and they check what you do. So, but yes, I scale back where I think I can. But this is something that I think is vitally important. Because I see it, and I can see, I can think of a call for service that we just had. I think the lieutenant was involved in it, that we had officers dealing with somebody with a mental health issue that took off, and it was just, we needed to be able to know what we're doing and know how to do it properly, and know how to, not to frighten somebody, to know when to push, when to pull back, and how to act.
Definitely sounds like
It's
important training.
It's important, and I think we're going to be on the cutting edge I think you'll see other communities, mark my words, other communities, maybe a year from now, will be saying, we're doing this thing, and you're gonna say, you heard it here first. 'Cause, we've jumped on that, and I think it's important. Made the commitment to it. So that's something I want to do in FY19. So electricity projections, so I'm into expenses now. Electricity, I requested a $4,000 increase in this line item so it went up $4,000 to, the request is $42,000. Looking at today, even though we're a little bit behind, we haven't got all our electricity bills in, we're at $22,000 we've extended. So this, and it's just the cost of electricity for the department, as everyone knows, it's going up in the town, it's going up everywhere. It's just everywhere across the Commonwealth, the costs are going up, and I think the town is trying to do the best they can to try to reduce those numbers as much as possible. So it might be a number that a little bit underfunded, but I'll figure it out. We'll have to make sure we bring back less to light bulbs.
Do you need a scissor lift to change your light bulbs?
We have one, if we need it. No, I was gonna say we have one. We have one of those. Yeah, you know what, but the funny part is that, all kidding aside, the outside lights, absolutely. If you think of those outside lights by the
The
all
front
around the
entrance,
station,
yeah.
Yep.
instead of paying an electrician, I can, they just screw it in.
Yep.
I was picturing somebody on a forklift doing it. That's why I kept being like, this doesn't make any
We can
sense.
put a talent on it.
I know, but
It's very stable, no liability there.
Will you call me the day you're changing the light bulbs? Because I would like to see the chief of police changes on the bulbs.
You'll be amazed at what I do. So fuel oil is based upon, I reduced it by $1,000 to $12,000 based on the the previous year's usage. I think we're at $5,500 right now. Matter of fact, I know we are. So I think that's in line with, again, we're a little bit behind, a month behind. So I think $12,000. I tried to save money where I can and reduce. I increase where I think we need it, and I reduce where I think we don't.
Maybe you can answer this. Does the town contract for gas?
We buy off the,
Black market.
our regional, one of our two regional bids, Associated Regional Services Group, one for the Fulton County bids, so we are involved in regional bids for gasoline.
Yes. Repairs and maintenance, which is basically the building, which is 10 years old now. Imagine that. 10 years old. That's amazing to me. A decade.
flies.
So we did it
Still
in
looks new.
2008. Yeah, thank you. We take pride in the fact that if you walk through that station, you'll see that it's beautiful. Very particular about it. The officers are very particular about it.
Which reminds me, we should set up a tour.
Yeah, you
I'll-
should.
I'll
Please do.
get in contact
Please
with you
come
about
see the
that.
station.
It's been a
I'd be
while.
happy to show you the station, the facility, and it gives you a better idea of what we do. What our, constraints are and what our pluses are, when you get to see the facility. So please, honestly, come in anytime. Or you can come in on your own, or you can come in as a group. It's all good. Just let me know. So that remained unchanged. I would highly recommend we don't change that at all. We don't decrease it. It's just, again, heaters and whatnot, we'll spend the money on.
While you're looking, Greg, did you have a question?
Yeah.
I just asked him, what I just asked there?
Just about,
Yeah, I just asked if they hedged it, like, in the beginning of the year, you can buy a contract, that contract's gonna assure that you're never gonna pay X amount of money for, I just didn't know if anybody does that.
Yep.
Maybe the treasurer does, maybe somebody, I have no idea. So that's literally what I was asking.
So a lot of the repair and maintenance of the building right now is centered around our heating boilers not working. Honestly, they haven't really worked great from day one. I think we're light years ahead of most police departments and most building projects, but it still drives me crazy. And generator repair, trying to look at what else we have. Heating and air conditioning repair and maintenance. So that's pretty much where we spend our money there.
there any major repairs or replacements that you see
No.
coming up?
No. Hopefully, knock on wood. Other purchase services, I increased a couple $1,000s this year. Again, this is like maintenance for the building, meaning contractors. We have somebody come in daily to keep it clean, and keep everything clean. Telephone contract, we pay annually or quarterly, $1,000 quarterly.
How are the phones?
The phones are great, thank you for asking. Except, I still have a hard time sometimes calling up here.
here.
But that's the old phones.
Okay.
Those ain't my phones. My phones work great. That's an inside
Glad
joke.
to know that.
Way back when
Yeah.
we had issues with the phones, which have been fixed. So, we also have a computer consultant that we use. We don't use them nearly as much as we used to because we have our own computer guru, Wayne Norling, who does a wonderful job.
Yes, he does.
So he really is. He's a guy who's worth his weight in gold. So, and locksmith, stuff like that, colonial cleaners. That's pretty much most of the items. So it's anything purchased services that we purchased or agreements that we purchased to maintain the equipment that we have. Postage, we don't need to touch that. I think we've only spent $100 so far on that. Email and all that has really decreased the need for postage, which is nice. We still gotta have something in it because, we'll get a court order or something that we have to mail off. So you gotta have a little money in there for something. But it certainly doesn't need to be increased. Although last year, I think we spent $1,400 on it. It's not worth increasing. I think we can live within our budget. Telephone, it looks like I kept that the same. I think in FY '17, we only expended a little bit shy of $20,000 on that. As of today, I'm about $9,700. I'm hoping that we'll add a detective, and eventually they'll get a phone. So that remained unchanged. Radio expense, same idea. I reduced this line item by a little bit over $2,000. So requested $17,000. I think the previous year, I must have reduced it. I reduced it by a couple $1,000. The previous year, we were at $19,091. This year, I'm asking for $17,000. I think we're slowly but surely, we're getting caught up with our radios.
You
We
replace,
replaced a lot of
right.
them, and we've used grant money to replace a lot of them. That's part of what civil defense, that $3,000 we get the last couple of years. So I have a civil defense budget of $3,000. I use that exclusively to match a grant, and what we've used it for is radios. So they give us, we spend $3,000, they give us $3,000. It's 100% match, so it's good. So we're certainly getting there, but we still have to pay for maintenance agreements, and also I need to take a look at, again, because we're 10 years old, replacing some of our dispatch, upgrading some of our dispatch areas in radios. We're getting a little bit older, so we did reduce it though. Computer teletype, I increased $2,000 there to $40,000. It's basically just upgrade, this is something that, again, Wayne helps us with, is he helps us order the equipment that we need and replace the equipment that we need. And I'm doing it with instead of me trying to do it with no level of expertise and listening to a salesperson, I have at my disposal a person that, for the town, who works for the town, that is always out looking to get us the best bargain. Excuse me. Right now, we've expended about $34,000, and I know that they are looking at me needing to, next year, to upgrade or replace one of our servers. We have our main server, we have a backup server, and then I have an off-site thing. So we're, it's interesting, we are, in a perfect world, we probably should do it off-site. It's a little bit expensive, and I'm a little bit paranoid of that. I still think if they can
Security
get into
purposes.
CIA headquarters, they can get into Abington place. Maybe I'm a little bit off my rocker, but I'm a little bit strange about that. So, but we have two separate. We have our server, and then in the evidence room we have a backup server. So, and they mirror each other. And I know we have to replace one to the tune of about $20,000. So they're pretty funky, and we're constantly needing to, because we take so much data in, we constantly need to expand our what is it, the megabytes, gigabytes, or whatever they are, storage.
Probably terabytes at this point.
Yeah, terabytes, whatever they are, I don't know. But that's what I have Wayne for. Yep. So, and right now, like I said, we've expended right now without doing anything but just trying to keep up and maintain $34,000. So the $40,000, $2,000 increases. Office supplies, no need to increase that. It remains at $8,500. We've expended about $4,500 to date. Office supplies is something that should be fairly consistent. It shouldn't really, you get your minor increases in paper or whatnot, but it shouldn't need any major increase. And actually, we got no increase. Auxiliary expenses, again, I'm reducing that by $425 to $9,000. And right now, we've expended $8,200. And the majority of auxiliary supplies and expenses, auxiliaries work for free. They don't get paid, for the most part. They volunteer. They help out the full-time offices on the weekend. And a lot of what, like this year, I think I got them shirts, as a thank you. But a lot of it is employment screening, psychologicals, which are, in employment requirements, where again, we're accredited, and plus we want to do a psychological screen. Thank God prior to me, or when I got hired, they didn't do that, but we do it now.
I want to remember, there's a stipend or some kind of stipend for the auxiliary. Is there nothing at all?
Yeah, they get nothing, but you know what they are allowed to do is work details.
Okay.
So
There was something, I knew there was a way that they could
Yeah, they can
earn
make
money.
Okay. And that's a good thing, because then the town makes 10% on that. So when
Right.
you're working a detail out there, the town's getting an administrative fee of 10%. So the more we have officers out there working,
What is
captures
auxiliary?
back to the
Can you just
town.
explain to me the auxiliary
Please.
thing?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good.
No, I don't want to keep you here, till everybody here till 10, I just don't know some of the things.
I don't have a problem with it. They might glare at you.
This is what, this is,
Lyric.
I just want to keep them here long.
this is why police has their own night.
Our officers that we hire, they go to the academy. They're not full-time officers. They have other jobs for the most part.
All right.
They're businessmen, business ladies.
That was my, I
They don't get paid.
didn't understand if somebody had like a job, so that was my issue.
Yeah, and then, so on the weekends, on Thursday and Friday, they help out. They'll stand by a tow.
I gotcha.
They'll do the, stuff, so.
You don't even have to keep going. Thanks.
Events and
I just
things,
didn't know if there were
right?
people
Town
without
events,
jobs.
we've been
Yeah.
lucky to have.
Pay private details.
Got it.
Custodial supplies, I didn't increase that. It's the same at $3,000. We've spent $2,400 now. That's just custodial supplies, whatever it might be, toilet paper, stuff like that. Gas and oil, I kept it the same as last year. I think we certainly should be able to live within our means, and I wouldn't recommend decreasing it, I wouldn't recommend increasing it. Right now, we've spent $20,000 in that line item, and we're lagging behind. I know we have a gas delivery due, so, you know, I think we're on target, provided, as long as the price doesn't go, you know, unpredictably through the roof, we should
Do you
be
happen
all
to have
right.
last year's number for that?
Yeah, I certainly should. Gas and oil, last year, looks like we spent $26,000 in that line item last year. And don't ask me why that number is so low. I suspect that it may be a case where some of that was picked up by the snow count. It might be, sometimes that happens.
Like it might have been in a different line,
Exactly.
instead of in that, it might have been in something
Yeah.
more specific.
Yeah, so, but I think that's on target with this year, it certainly appears to be. Vehicle supplies, this line item I increased by $4,000. Vehicle maintenance does an unbelievable job. They're great. I can tell you currently, we've spent $24,000 right now. I'm asking for 25. But some of the things that you don't see, like I can tell you an officer got in an accident on, I think it was Hancock Street, maybe a week ago. Hit a curb, one of our snowstorms, hit a curb, took the tire right off. Bring it to vehicle maintenance, they fix it. Now, it was about $700 to fix, maybe a little bit more, maybe 800, somewhere in there. We never did an insurance claim, and that's the beauty of it, because our insurance deductible is $1,000, and it would increase our insurance. So those are the things that vehicle maintenance, you know what I'm saying, like they will fix, because we didn't hit anything else. You hit a curb, so there wasn't property damage, other than town property.
Yep.
So those are the things that vehicle maintenance does, that people just don't realize. If we get a dent, if one of our offices backs into, you know, a tree, or backs into one of the poles at the station, they fix it. And we don't really claim. It keeps our insurance costs down, because they have the ability to, not only do, you know, radio work, mechanical work, but also body work.
In-house or out-of-house?
That's over at the highway department.
Yeah.
Yes,
They
DPW.
did, like all the vehicles in town,
Yeah,
the
anything that
maintenance
you
and.
could- anything that you could want, they can fix.
That's great.
Motorcycles, we have a ski mobile, we have dirt bikes, we have a quad, we have, you know, all these different things that they can fix. Fire engines, fire apparatus,
Wow.
it's just amazing to me. The expertise that they have is just, it really is priceless. I'm giving them a plug, but.
It does
they
save the
deserve
town a
it.
lot of money.
Yeah, they deserve it. So, and I guess I'll get into, eventually, I'll get into capital plan. But, all right, so that's, I did increase it, but it's, basically, that's what it costs, just to, and that's just expenses.
Yep.
Like, it's just the oil
Parts.
changes, the tires, the stuff like that. The fixes, the tie rods, the, whatever it might be, alternators. Travel expenses, I increased by $2,000 to an amount of $5,000. Last year in FY '17, we expended $4,300 or $4,400. Currently, I think we're at $3,300. Travel expenses now, this is the rub on this is that officers used to be able to take cruises to trainings. I did away with that. I stopped that, but the flip side of it is, because I think it's more cost effective, or whatever it might be, we pay them, you know, whatever it is by the accountant or whatever they do, the set rate for mileage, whatever the set rate is. So that's where that gets increased. It saves money. It saves wear and tear on our vehicles. You know, when the officers take their own vehicles. And if they get in an accident, it's their vehicle, not our vehicle. So that's why I think it's you know, it's, I think it's a wise business decision. Membership and dues, I increased that by 1,000. Currently, the requested amount is 10,000, so it was 9,000. Last year, we expended $9,400. Currently, we are at $8,400. Let's see what I got for. Some of the items that we expended this membership and dues is the accreditation, Mass Police accreditation. There's a membership dues that goes with that. Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council, that's MetroLEC. That's if we need additional resources, officers from all other communities will come in and help us. If we have a big event, I guess the easiest way to say it is when we had Philip Curtis, those of you that remember, when he got lost, he was a gentleman that had Alzheimer's, and he got lost. We had 125 police officers, search and rescue from Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council assisting us. It didn't cost the town at all. So that itself, you know, and unfortunately, we found him, and he had died. This is the Resource Officer Association. There's a Hanson Rod and Gun Club that we have, so officers can qualify. RAD, bids for the Plymouth for our vehicles. IACP, Southeastern Mass. So those are some of the things that we have memberships in. Training expenses. I increased that by $3,000 for a total request of $37,000. Currently, we spent $24,000. The majority of this is going to be the academies that we send to. So it's $3,000. So every time we spent, let me tell you right here. Every time we send somebody to the academy, it costs us $3,000 up front. Now, as officers, when they come out of the academy, they pay that back to the general fund. So a lot of it is upfront money that, you know, that we have. For instance, we have 3 officers in the academy, so there's $9,000 right there. Right now, 2 more to go in, so there's another $6,000, but when they come out, they'll pay it back. It doesn't go back to the department, it goes back to the general fund for free cash.
So why doesn't the money come out of the general fund if it's going back into it?
That would be an accounting issue. I think that this half dozen or the other, I think you put it in the budget, and then it goes back to the town.
But it's coming out of your budget is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's ultimately the town's money, and ultimately it goes back to the town. So
Oh, I
it's all-
understand, I just,
However you want to do it.
Sean? Just a minor point, matching. You match the expense
Yes.
with the department. That's the only reason why, Pete. The point's still stated, but you have to match the expense with the department. And it's reimbursed, and as the chief already indicated, all comes back to the same pot, and it's gonna get redistributed for the next year. If, for instance, they weren't funding it, then I think you'd have an argument to suggest that the town should be ponying up the money. But that's not the case, right? So the police department is funding it up front. The net is zero to everybody.
And it's lining up the cost with the line because it is.
And otherwise, it could get spent
Yeah.
somewhere else. And-
not if
and
it were
you
fenced,
would not,
but it's okay.
well,
And
it's a
that's
general fund, so
basically
you
what-
can't do that.
Okay.
So unclassified, again, that's kind of the catch-all. I didn't recommend any increase in that at all. Keep it remained as it has for the last whatever amount of years, at least 3 or 4 that I can think of, at $12,500. Last year, we expended $13,000 in this line item. Unclassified is a lot of things like, let me see, South Shore Healthcare, medical issues that we had to deal with, more medicals when we have, you know, Narcan, that there is a cost to that. Each officer has a medical kit, well, not each officer, each cruiser, when we go to calls, you know, car washes to keep the cruisers clean. A lot of it is healthcare, radiology, and officers. This is one of those areas that the officers, for whatever reason, need to go to a hospital, and there's some costs that, you know, the town incurs. We pick that up. That's basically the majority of it is healthcare. F Flick Lifestyles, that's the meals for when we send them to the state police academies. We, of course, they feed them, we gotta pay for that. And that's pretty much where it's at. So, I'll move into, that's my budget. Anybody have any questions before I get into capital outlay, or capital plan, I should say? You guys, are you interested in capital plan, should I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
This is what I proposed in 2018, to replace one cruiser at $46,000. Last year, you replaced two cruisers. I think this year, we need to replace, we need to keep up on our cruisers. What people don't realize, and they forget, is that our cruisers run 24 hours a day. Our mainline cruisers never shut off. You can think about that. They actually never shut off. Well, they do in between. You know?
Rarely.
But rarely. But so a year in a police cruiser, if we work 24 hours, it goes from one officer to the next officer takes it, the next officer takes it. Unlike the state police, that they have, each officer has his own cruiser and only goes 8 hours and da-da-da-da. Our cruisers run, so they get beat to heck. Vehicle maintenance does a great job on, they do oil change every 2,000 miles. They get the absolute most they can out of them, but it's one of those things that we need to take a proactive approach. And I think right now we seem to be in a plan where, thanks to you guys, where we're doing 2 every other year, and then 1 in between. So last year you gave us 2. Today we're asking for 1. There are some departments that get 2 or 3 every year, but we have a vehicle maintenance, and they keep our vehicles. I think we're a little bit. That's probably another cost savings, because of the vehicle maintenance. The costs don't run us up as much. If we get a brake change or a brake job, it's only costing us the cost of the brake pads and all that. I'm not paying.
How many cruisers do you have total?
I ask that every year. The same we've always had. I think we have 5 frontline, maybe. I'd have to count. I should have got a count this morning. But so if we get a cruiser, one of 2 things happens. Either it goes to either first thing I call the town manager and I say, we're replacing a cruiser, and he takes a look at it, and vehicle maintenance takes a look at it, and we decide, is this thing worth salvaging? Can another department use it or not? And no vehicle, nobody can use it. It goes on bid, and we get the highest bid we possibly can for the vehicle.
It's like an auction, right?
For an auction,
The
yeah.
auction.
Municipal bids.
Municipal, thank you.
Municipal service, yes.
Yeah.
So it goes out, and we try to get money for it. That goes into the general fund. But I don't get, so if I replace a cruiser. So if I get a vehicle goes offline. And I just look at whatever vehicle, and I basically work with vehicle maintenance to say, Jack or Marcus or John, what vehicle makes the most sense? What do we need to get rid of? And they'll tell me this vehicle.
It's only 5, or roughly around that number. I figured it'd be a lot more.
It's on Mark 2. Now that's 5 marked vehicles.
Oh,
Now you have the
I
deputy's
understand.
vehicles, you have my vehicle, you
Yep.
have my deputy chief's vehicle, so yeah, it's a little bit more than that. But, 5 marked.
And how many of those are, out tonight, would you say?
Right now, we have, I believe, 3 out right now. We try to keep at least 3 on the road. We try to keep at least a sergeant on a night shift or on a midnight shift. A sergeant and 2 patrols. That's the minimum, sometimes 4. Sometimes during the day, you got your court prosecutor, he takes a vehicle. So there might be that vehicle out as well. The other thing that I asked for is on my capital plan this year, is to replace 1 copy scanner machine. I think that makes sense. I think we got the price of $6,500 on replacing that. It's a copy machine. It would be for my administrative, actually my records clerk, administrative, was got replaced.
6,500, is that what you said?
Use a copy machine cheap, are you too good?
Well, this does scanning, so what we do is we scan all our documents and also, so use it for copying. So. And then the other thing, the last thing I asked for was a radio repeater for Chestnut Street. We have a repeater up on Chestnut Street that's been there. It's been there since before the station was built, so it's been there probably about 12 years. About 12 years old. It sits up in the little building up right out in front of the Lincoln Street water towers, and then the antennas on the top of the water tower. It's a repeater. We really need to look at upgrading, replacing that. I got a price of $54,000 for that, for Motorola.
What was it again, sir?
Radio repeater. So what happens is when you take the mic, it just repeats and amplifies it, picks it up off the tower, and then repeats it out there, so that people can communicate. And I think that is it. Have any questions? Barbara, did I miss anything?
Do you have any warrant articles other than?
I'm going to work on a warrant article, again, with the town manager, on possibly setting up some sort of a revolving account. Again, this has got something that we're working through with the union in negotiations on establishing a revolving account so that officers get paid when they work details in a more expedient fashion. Right now, when they work a detail, they can wait anywhere from 2 to 3 months to get paid, depending on when the contractor pays. So I'm trying to, and that really creates a tough work environment when they're working. People want to get paid. They're waiting on the contract. Eventually, we get it, and we get 10%, but it would be nice to. It's something that I'm working with the town manager, hopefully working with the union, and hopefully it's something that we can pull together and work together and make happen. That's it. Other than that, any articles?
You have your, plus the capital.
Plus whatever capital.
You have, just what, I'm just thinking while you're here, so we get it all done. The other revolving account, just so that people that are new understand.
And I can talk about that if you want, the revolving.
Because that'll be
account.
on that, right? You'll have that on the warrant, just as it's always there.
Yeah.
So it's another article that would just have every year because they need it.
And to date, I can tell you where that money has gone. To date, we've expended $39,000 out of that. It's gone towards taser holsters and batteries. So our tasers needed to be.
Can you just explain the revolving account? Like how you,
Okay. The revolving account was set up for expenses only. I was particular when we originally set it up. It's for monies that were generated through citation certificates. The money goes in. I was particular about not allowing overtime. Fundamentally, I got a problem with that, to generate money for personnel costs. But I do think that expenses that, are something that it's appropriate to use it for, money's generated for. Police equipment and grants, those are the things that we use that money for. So for instance, we had tasers that were 5 years old or longer?
Older.
Older. That were the taser recommended we replace them. And in a nutshell, the tasers that we had, when you deploy the taser, and everybody realizes what a taser is, it's an electronic device that's used for compliance to gain control of people, that it's less lethal. I mean, it's non-lethal, but it's less lethal than a firearm. So it's a tool that they use. And the ones we had, once you deployed it, you could hold that and it would continuously do the charge. So if you were in a stressful situation and you held that, you'd be lighting somebody up. And that was the way they originally designed. You weren't supposed to do that. We saw that as a potential issue. It didn't happen, but we saw it as a potential issue. The newest tasers that come out can do no more than 5 seconds. So you can press that all you want, and you can get nervous. It's going to do 5 seconds, and it's going to stop. So I saw that as a high area of liability for the town. the old ones, we immediately replaced them. So that's one of the, that was almost $19,000. Defibrillators, we replaced some defibrillators that we needed, so cardiac units. Stop sticks, we had each cruiser. I originally had one stop stick. And a stop stick is a device that if you were in a pursuit, you'd see them on the highway, you roll them out, and what they are is basically spikes with holes in the middle of them. So there's spikes that we roll out, and they have holes in the middle of them, so when you run over them, spikes stick into your tires and they deflate your tire. That's the idea of it. So you're not getting in pursuit. So if you have the ability to prevent somebody from getting in a high-speed pursuit, it's something that every cruiser has now. We had somebody not too long ago, actually not that long ago at all, we were in a pursuit. I actually was involved in that pursuit. We ended up stopping the person. It was 7:30 in the morning. He was obviously under the influence, had been up all night under the influence of heavy narcotics, didn't know what he was going, was driving all over the place, to the point where I made the decision to take my cruiser and put it into his car, because I thought he was going to kill somebody. So I made the decision with my own car to immediately stop him, because we had kids walking. We had somebody who basically was taking a 3,000-pound vehicle and driving freaking sidewalks and everywhere else. But it would have been nice if we had stop sticks. It would have been nice if we had that, though. We didn't have them. So I saw it as an area of liability, where I thought we needed to get each vehicle, have those, and also train. There's also a training component of those. So.
And that you just did?
We just did, yes.
And the revolving accounts at what, so this, it caps at a certain amount.
Yep.
So,
It caps at, I think it's 60,000, but we don't reach that. I think, it hasn't gone up. I want to say it's maybe $30,000 or $40,000 at maximum. I think it's typically what we. It doesn't change, and I was pretty cognizant of that too. I wanted to make sure that it didn't go up when it wasn't any different from 10 years ago that it is today. It's pretty steady, because that would be an area of concern for me, is if we.
because then people accuse you of writing tickets in order to fund your revolving account.
Exactly, which, doesn't happen. And then some, looks like we had some computer items too. HP serve drives, adapter, and service plan, whatever that is. That's something that when ordered. And then some semi-automatic, I had 3 semi-automatic weapons, fully automatic weapons for myself, for my lieutenant, and for my deputy chief, to have in our vehicles in the event that we have to respond. What I quickly have realized is that the sidearm, each cruiser has the same capability. I wouldn't want to respond with a sidearm in today's times. These are weapons that, in the event, God forbid, we have something happen, they're ample to protect, so that we can protect the public. So that's it. Any other areas or issues or
No, I'm good.
questions? I'll fire off. I don't mind. I really don't.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
Pretty good.
I have a ton, I'm sorry.
Go fire away.
Is 50K enough, is 50,000 enough for a detective? Like, I mean, I don't know, I Googled it, doesn't, seems like it's really at the bottom.
So
But,
I think to answer that, what we had talked about before was essentially what we would be doing would be bringing in a new patrolman and having someone else on staff already move up to a detective spot.
yep,
So we would be bringing in someone at a lower pay rate, at
Yep.
a starting pay rate. and then someone
We'd have to
else.
still give that other person probably more money to be a detective, I'm making the assumption.
With a
The stipend.
stipend.
That's already.
That's already in the budget.
The combination would equal
Yeah,
50.
it's a great question, it really is. And I should be able to, as we hire people, the other factor in it is, that's just bare bones of what it
Right.
costs. I should be able to save money by hiring more people to absorb that. If I was to say, all right, that office it's $50,000, well, what about holidays? Yeah, it's gonna cost. What about vacation? It's gonna cost. But I should be able to absorb that by the money I'm saving with the additional people to be. it
From
should-
the overtime.
From the overtime and all that, it should take care of
And
itself.
what about
That's why I asked for
healthcare?
very minimal.
Well,
That's a whole different
well,
animal.
that's-
That's not something
That
that
was
comes
right,
out.
yeah,
That's different.
There are other
It's
benefits.
not
Yeah,
in
that is
the,
true.
So my,
it's not in your
the second
budget
part of the question is,
specifically.
what does it really cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a
So we'll get into
$50,000?
that maybe.
Yes.
Like I have costs in my business, it's a lot easier. I don't have a lot of your things that I have to deal with, so 50 equals 62, roughly.
For every,
Yeah, 63-ish maybe, you know what I mean? So that's why I'm asking, is it,
I can tell you what it costs me, what
Yeah.
it would cost the town is the $50,000. Everything else,
Yeah.
it's gonna save, so it should be a wash. Healthcare is a whole different animal, and that would be something that doesn't come out of my budget, but certainly.
we used to figure when you would lay off a person, what was the number that we used to kind of figure when you'd have to lay off, to lay off one person, that was for the unemployment. But,
Yeah.
so in the hiring, there was a number too, as far as the healthcare.
So I think the easier way to do it, and it asks through the chair to the town manager, to the town accountant. Can you just give us the fully loaded cost of a town employee by department? And that'll cover that question.
Yeah, I mean, you
That would be great.
Probably have to talk about another, 12,000 for a family plan, plus some markup for your pension liability. There's obviously.
it's gonna be a good amount. That's why I was, so, in the last 10 years, you didn't have detectives.
Correct.
This is a tough question.
Go ahead.
I unfortunately like asking questions like this, some people don't like it, but you didn't have any. What, did you see anything in those 10 years that you would have said, hey, I'd rather detective, but not that?
Every day.
You see anything, say that again now?
So I'd rather have a detective, but not this here, right here. I'd rather trade a detective for this. It's a tough question, but it's.
Yeah, no, because you gotta we still have to do the basic service. So I need to be able to, when you pick up that phone and you call 911, I need to be able to have a police officer.
Yep.
So I guess the answer is no. Is there something that I could trade off? No, because we still have to have enough just to cover the basics, calls for services. What a detective does is do proactive police work. We're reactive police work.
Sure.
I hate reactive police work. I really do. That's not me. But it's been me for the last 10 years. I'm a guy that likes to get out there and be ahead of the curve
Sure.
and stop it. I think Sir Robert Peel in 1879, which is, by the way, where Keep Your Eyes Peeled came from, and bodies and all that, modern day policing, he said basically the absence of crime is truly, what you're after, to prevent crime from happening before it happens. And that's what detectives do. And when we had detectives, I sat, and I think nobody really got what I was saying, because there was a year, and I can remember sitting with the FinCom, and at that point, I used to do PowerPoint presentations, and we had, I think it was 8 or 9 armed robberies, weapons shown, handguns or whatnot. And I said, you know how many of those we solved this year? And they looked at me. 9. Every one of them. Every one of them. We solved. And I guess people didn't get that, and I think that's phenomenal. And that was the drug work. See, that was, you know what? When Joe Blow robs a store, it's the drug work. Follow it. It's the drugs. So if you have good informants, the informants will tell you, hey, that was Joe Blow who did that. Because it's not you or me who had a hard week at work and we need to make payment, right? We're not going to do that. It's the people that are struggling with addiction. And we get them before they hurt somebody or before they hurt themselves, and we get them into treatment. So that's the other end of it. I always say this, like a chair, law enforcement, you need to have three things. Just like you need to have three legs to make a chair stand. One is education. I think the schools do a good job of that. We do that. We're doing that more than we ever have. I think the public does it. I think parents do it. I think we all do it. I think different organizations that jump in. I can see your organization. There's an educational component of it. And the other is, enforcement. Is enforcement. And the third is treatment. So we do the treatment part, and we do the education part, but we don't do the enforcement part. So we're on two legs right now, and we've been on two legs for 2 years. And I think we need to take the proactive approach of going after and going after some of these issues. Because if you don't think that the Joe Blow drug dealer knows that we don't have detectives, they know it. They're well aware of it. Like, they're aware of it. We're not fooling anybody. There used to be this whole, hey, don't tell anybody. They know what we have, and it's a problem. So it's a big issue for me. But again, I'm going to go backwards and say what I said at the beginning. Listen, I understand. You're going to have, 8 more departments, 10 more departments coming in. You're telling you they need things too, and I 100% get that. My job as police chief is to tell you my perspective. And it's difficult. I take my hats off to you. I know you're not getting paid. You're trying to do the right thing. I get it. But again, I'll just tell you what I think. And how it goes from there, I get it.
I will also say, and the chief knows better than anybody, the needs of the other departments too.
Absolutely.
And he also knows that his biggest internal priority is getting this department kind of this retooled, but without taking the rest of the town backwards either. So,
Exactly.
And just so you know, Chief, last week when we had this conversation about this to some extent, and we had a conversation which probably would have been helpful if you were here, but it kind of turned into more of a conversation than I think we thought it might be. And some of it had to do with civil service and the difficulties of filling positions. So, in the timetable it takes to do that under the current system, so even to the extent that even if we're able to put some funding in next year's budget, to fund positions even for a partial fiscal year, next year, even, for the latter part of the fiscal year, to get, the detective division, so to speak, off the ground, later in the fiscal year, even something along those lines. Understanding the liability would be good with us into FY20, but it all depends on how the rest of the budget process shapes up. Which is a lot of it is state funding, and also, as you know, the larger the priorities of the school committee with the kindergarten initiative. So in our current budget, I guess you'd say paradigm is predicated on right now, and again, as we put it together internally, this obviously the finance committee hasn't taken a position on it yet, and it's way too early. Is it really a fixed level services approach based upon a 3% operational budget right now? So which includes absorbing the 2 additional grant-funded positions. So we can squeeze out some funding for some additional staffing that was we're not there yet, but we'll see how this continues as factors come together. So
Understood. And that's why it's a heavy head that wears the crown.
yeah. So anyway, that's thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave the rest.
Again, thank everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Greg?
Thank you very much.
Good, all good.
Anything else?
Yeah, no. I spoke enough.
Certainly,
No.
if you have something offline, pick up the phone, anybody, if you need my number, honestly, don't be ashamed, or don't be afraid, or don't be, ask a question. Honestly, that's what I'm here.
No, thank
I don't
you.
mind.
Yeah.
I'll give you what I think. I might not be right. I'll give you what I think.
Definitely appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Pat.
All right.
Chief, I'm gonna email you about some non-finance committee stuff.
Perfect. Perfect.
Moving on to Continual business, do we have any liaison reports? Anyone? Nope. Communications, we have a couple. We have the 47th edition of the Municipal Financial Data, and we have the Beacon, which I know Dr. Tyler was looking for. And we were provided minutes to review. I do not have a printed out copy. Point of question, do we need the printed out copy to actually vote on the minutes that we were all provided electronically?
No.
I see a no, so we can vote. Most of us were here 2 weeks ago. Some
Motion
of
to
us were
approve
not.
the meeting minutes of January 27th, 24th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes from the January 24th meeting? Without any, all those in favor of approving the minutes? Those opposed? Abstaining? The ayes have it. And there is nothing else further on the agenda for this week. We do have a meeting with the fire department next week.
I will
And
not be here.
Again, I do apologize for it being on Valentine's Day.
I will also not be here.
So. I will be here, and I'm not a smart man, so. And then we do have a week off after that, and we'll be back on the 28th. So that's our upcoming schedule for the rest of the month.
We have that, the next week off?
Yes, school vacation week. It's typically
I know
hard,
nothing about school vacation.
typically hard to get,
You'll get there.
typically hard to get a quorum that week. So, are there any other
Motion to
questions,
adjourn?
discussion, motions? I hear a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? We are adjourned. Thank you
All right.
all.